What's up, guys? Logan here, and in today's video, it is more of a serious video. We're going to be talking about NFL quarterbacks, all 32 of them ranked. I did this last year, and I wanted to do this again this year. The thing is, like, it's a little tough to do this when I've focused my main focus now is just to make comedy videos and sketches and stuff, but I wanted to do this because football is something I'm very passionate about, and for all I know, this video could blow up and that could end up turning into a sports channel. So who knows? I'm doing this anyways. I don't expect a lot of people to watch this, but if you're interested, please stay tuned. I'd really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get started. A couple things before we get started. I'd like to apologize for the poor lighting. My room absolutely sucks for lighting. The only good place for lighting is near that door, near my closet. And unfortunately, nowhere else in my entire room has good lighting. So I apologize. I tried my best. Yeah. So another thing, last thing before we officially get started, I'm not going to rank the Jaguars quarterbacks on the list, so technically it'll be the 31 quarterbacks, but the Jaguars rolled with 3 quarterbacks this year. They all kind of split time, and I'm going to rank each of them as I saw. So one other thing is that each different quarterback will be placed in a tier. I have the trash tier. These are all the quarterbacks that I felt are not good, they were bad, and they're probably replacement level. Well, they are replacement level. They're bad. They're trash. Then I also have my below average tier. This is quarterbacks that didn't particularly play well this year, and quarterbacks that I think need to take a step up if they want to be a franchise quarterback moving forward. Then I have the above average tier. This is the tier where I think the players played above average. Guys who showed throughout the season that they have flashes. They also had some bad games in there, but at the end of the day, all these quarterbacks showed flashes of being good quarterbacks. Then I have my near elite tier. This is the tier of quarterbacks that I felt played almost elite, very close to it. It's a very short tier. There's not many quarterbacks in that tier. And then I also have my elite tier, which is the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So, with that being said, let's get started. First off, I'm going to rank the Jaguars quarterbacks because I can't really put them at 32 because they rocked with 3 quarterbacks throughout the season. And I'm just going to rank them right now before we actually start the list. Gardner Minshew would have been put in the average tier. He's a quarterback that has good leadership skills. And at the end of the day, the players play for him. And that's something you can't say about the other 2 quarterbacks on roster. Minshew actually does have talent. He's a very accurate quarterback, and problem is he doesn't really have the arm strength, and not particularly he's a smart player, but I think he's a little bit more aggressive than you would hope for a guy that doesn't have too much arm talent. He's average. I think that on any other team, he could probably be a starting caliber quarterback. Next is Mike Glennon. He would be trash. He's not good. And I think that's pretty obvious. And then they also have Jake Luton on roster. He's trash, below average, either or. I think you have to put him in trash because he only played 2 games. Or it was 2 or 3 games, I can't remember. But wasn't particularly great. So, with the Jaguars quarterbacks out of the way, let's get started. Number 31 with our trash tier. I have Nick Mullins. He played a majority of the season for the San Francisco 49ers and very clearly proved himself as a backup. He's not good at all. I really don't think that he would be a starter on any other team. And I feel like I should also mention Jimmy Garoppolo here. Jimmy Garoppolo would be about average. Unfortunately, he was hurt, and the problem with Jimmy G is that, like, he's almost like the epitome of average. Last year he played well when everything around him, when the situation around him was perfect. and he took his team to a Super Bowl, but wasn't really because of him. It was because of the situation around him, and he just so happened to be the quarterback in that system. So Jimmy G would be average if he played the whole year, I think. The Niners probably would have been a better team. I don't know if they'd be a playoff team, but they would have been a better team if Jimmy G was healthy throughout the entirety of the season. Number 30 is Sam Darnold. Had a bad year, a really bad year. It's unfortunate because the Jets have absolutely stunted his growth. He is a very talented quarterback, but the problem is there's no help around him. His receiving core is, I can't even say his receiving core is decent. He only has Jamison Crowder. His offensive line is bad. It's horrible. His defense is actually decent. There's good players there. The problem is they just don't mesh well. Marcus May was pretty good this year. The defensive line is actually pretty decent for them, for the Jets. But we're talking about Sam Darnold here. Didn't really have much help. I can't blame him for being a bad quarterback. I think maybe you give him one more shot, maybe. But I think his time's probably up in New York. He was a guy that had a lot of raw talent. I didn't particularly like him coming out of college, but I did see the traits. And unfortunately, got put in a horrible system. Adam Gase absolutely ruined this man and ruined any sort of potential that he had. Number 29, Drew Lock. Again, a guy with talent, but just doesn't really show it on a consistent basis. He was really bad this year. The thing is, the team around him is actually pretty solid. Jerry Jeudy was a very solid rookie wide receiver. KJ Hamler, again, when he was healthy, he looked good out there. Cortland Sutton, obviously, losing him sucked. Sutton and Locke had some chemistry down the stretch last year. And Cortland Sutton is a very good receiver, and Drew Lock didn't have him for almost majority of the season. Well, it was majority of the season, excuse me. Drew Lock just misses throws. He has the arm talent, not particularly accurate, bad decision maker. You can tell that he is not the guy, and maybe they give him one more chance, but they should really in my opinion, I think they should look into trading up to get a quarterback. This quarterback class has a lot of talent, and I think that you gotta look into somebody else because you gotta do better than Drew Lock. Number 28 is Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. Both of them very bad. I don't care what you say. Trubisky sucks. He's horrible. He's never really been that good. Even the year where they were 12-4 and he made the playoffs, what did he do? It was just, again, it was kind of like a Jimmy Garoppolo situation where the situation around him was perfect, and he was the guy in the system that just so happened to be on the Bears. They would have been better with a better quarterback, and they probably could have made the Super Bowl if they didn't have Trubisky. The thing is, he's just not good. He doesn't have the arm talent. He's not particularly accurate down the field. He's good in the short game and occasionally the intermediate game, but the problem is he's not a smart quarterback. He doesn't do enough to lift his receiving core. His receiving core is actually decent. Allen Robinson's a top 10 wide receiver, and Darnell Mooney was pretty solid for them. He doesn't do enough to elevate these guys. There's a reason Allen Robinson wants out, because Trubisky and Foles both suck. Trubisky was the beneficiary of winning all the easy games. They started off 5-0, and none of the opponents that they faced were any good. I'm gonna search up their schedule right now, actually. So Trubisky's wins came against the Lions, the Giants, the Carolina Panthers, the Houston Texans, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is not impressive. Those are all bad teams. The best team there is probably the Panthers, maybe? All in all, Trubisky was the beneficiary of having an easy schedule. Not good at all. He's very bad. And I don't care what you say, Bears fans are going to hate me for this. You need to move on from Trubisky. You have to get a better quarterback. You're not winning a Super Bowl with Mitch Trubisky. Same thing goes for Nick Foles. He just so happened to play when Trubisky was hurt, and again, didn't really do enough. He's a backup at best, and again, he's a guy in a situation, in a vacuum, you could throw him in as a backup, but he's not that great. Number 27, Carson Wentz, probably could be lower. He was horrible this year. I just don't think he's worse than the other guys I mentioned, to be honest. He had a really bad year, though, and I think that there's potential for him to bounce back. The problem is he is too aggressive. He plays hero ball too often, and he acts like he's Patrick Mahomes when he's not. His mechanics suck. He has a horrible throwing motion. Footwork is always sloppy, and this was just the worst possible year that he could have had. He made Jalen Hurts look decent. I don't think Jalen Hurts is that good either. I would have put Hurts in below average to average. At the very least, they played for Jalen Hurts, and you can tell that he has leadership skills. Philly loved him. I didn't particularly think Hurts was all that great, but you can't deny that he was more of an exciting playmaker than Carson Wentz. At the end of the day, both quarterbacks not particularly good. Wentz specifically was really bad this year, and I think he's gone. They'd probably have to give up like a second round pick and get like a seventh back just to get rid of his contract. It's unfortunate because last year I thought he was fine, but this year it just took a turn for the worst, and it's crazy. It really is. That'll be the end of my trash tier. We are moving on to the below average tier. Number 26 is Alex Smith. His story is fantastic. I was rooting for Washington the entire year. Ron Rivera and Alex Smith, what a story. That's incredible. The fact that they made the playoffs, it's awesome. I love Alex Smith. Great guy. Fantastic story. 100% deserving of the comeback player of the year. Does that mean he was a good quarterback? Not at all. He was okay. He wasn't great. The problem with Alex Smith is that you could tell that he's always been a conservative quarterback, but this year in particular, he was more conservative than ever. He never throws the ball down the field. It's rare. And when he does, it usually looks sloppy. And obviously, when you sit out of football for a year and a half, that's going to happen to you. Alex Smith does not have much help around him, granted. Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin are good players, and Brandon Scherf is their best offensive lineman and one of the better ones in the league. But the problem is the rest of the team is just not good. The defense is solid, but Alex Smith doesn't have much help on the offense. He did win games. He's a winning quarterback. That's what he does. He just wins. He's not particularly good, but he wins. The team plays for him. It's impressive, man. The fact that he is even playing football is incredible, and the fact that he made the playoffs, granted in a bad division, is still one of the best stories in football history. So props to Alex Smith. I love the guy, but I just don't think he played that well this year. Number 25, Cam Newton. I feel like a lot of people would put him in trash, but honestly, I don't think that it was entirely his fault. His receiving core is easily the worst in the league and maybe the worst in NFL history. Jacoby Myers is okay. I wouldn't even say he's okay. He sucks. Then they have, Damiere Byrd? And Julian Edelman was hurt, and even then he's washed up. He's not that good anymore. Cam Newton, simply put, had no help around him. And this was the problem with Brady last year. The thing is, Brady is at least a fantastic quarterback and can elevate the players around him. Cam Newton can't do that. It was obvious. I think that Cam Newton, in a better scenario, would have had a better year and probably could have been considered average. The problem is his receiving core was so bad that you can't throw to players who can't create any sort of separation. I mean, none of them got open. There's a reason Cam Newton, he threw was it 5 touchdowns this year? It's something nuts like that. It's not Cam Newton's fault that he had a bad year. He wasn't particularly good, of course, but it's not his fault that his receiving core is horrible. So I'm putting him at 25. I think he wasn't good, but I think in a better scenario, he would have had a better year. Number 24 is Teddy Bridgewater, and he's about what you'd expect out of a quarterback, and that he's the ultimate game manager. And that's not particularly a bad thing, but that doesn't mean that, he's not going to elevate anybody around him. He has a very good receiving core. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel were all fantastic this year. That's one of the better receiving trios in the entire league. And, McCaffrey was hurt for most of the year, and that might have hurt Bridgewater's development maybe. The thing is, he's a game manager, and there's not much more you can say about him. He doesn't really elevate anybody around him. And that's something that you need as a franchise quarterback. The Panthers very well could have been a playoff team if they had a franchise quarterback, and if they had a quarterback that played better than Bridgewater. He just doesn't do enough to elevate anybody around him. He's an accurate quarterback. He has decent arm strength. He's decent at everything, but he's not great at anything. And that's a problem. He doesn't have any of these elite traits that you need out of a franchise quarterback. And he's not bad by any means, but you could do so much better than Teddy Bridgewater. He had a decent year, and at the end of the day, I think the Panthers could probably rock with him for another year, see what you have, and maybe he can help develop your next quarterback, regardless of who it is. Whether they trade for someone, whether they draft someone, I do think that Bridgewater is a bridge quarterback, and I think that he's a game manager, and he is probably the best. He would be the best backup in the league. I just don't think that he's any good as a starter, and that's why I have him at 24. Number 23. This is gonna ruffle some feathers. I have Drew Brees in the below average tier. Look, the guy can't throw the ball past 20 yards down the field. Sean Payton is luckily smart enough to have him only throw like slant routes, quick little dump offs, and have him not push the ball down the field. The Saints are a very well coached team, and of course Brees had good stats, but that doesn't mean he was a good quarterback. Granted, he was hurt for some of the year, but he still, when he was healthy, he didn't really look that good. It looked like he was holding the team back. And there are times where you need a guy in crunch time to push the ball 20 yards down the field. And Brees can't do that. And that's a problem that you have with him. He's old. He's probably done after this year. And it's for the better because the Saints need to move on. The thing is, Brees has the name value. He is no doubt a Hall of Famer, but at the moment, he's a bad quarterback. And they really need to move on from him because there's no way he can progress. He's only going to get older. And again, luckily for him, they have a good core around him. One of the best offensive lines in the league, a top 3 running back in Kamara. You have Michael Thomas, who granted wasn't healthy for most of the year. And the receiving core around him is solid, and they coach him up well. They put him in this system that fits his strengths and his capabilities. But the problem is he doesn't elevate anyone around him. And I think that that's something that the Saints need to really look into. And if he doesn't retire, you have to move on from him. You have to at least give Winston a chance, in my opinion. I think Winston probably would have been better this year than Drew Brees. Taysom Hill, I think I should mention him. He wasn't particularly good either. He would have been in my below average tier, probably worse than Drew Brees. He just got lucky. He had a couple of big plays. He was the worst deep ball thrower in the league. He's an exciting player, no doubt, but Taysom Hill is just not good at all as a full-time quarterback. But that'll do it for my below average tier. Drew Brees closes it out at number 23. Let's move on to the average tier, and that's where I have Daniel Jones. I didn't think I'd be able to put him in the average tier. But he had some solid games, really. The team around him isn't great, obviously. His receiving core is okay. Darius Slayton is probably his best receiver. No, it's Sterling Shepard, I would say. Slayton is he's a guy that makes a big play every now and then. He's not that great. But Daniel Jones had some decent games this year. I don't particularly think he's good. He's average, and he was so close to being below average for me, but I think he had enough decent games where you look at him and you say, wow, he has some traits, The problem with him is that he has no sense of pressure. He can't feel the pocket. And that's his greatest strength and his greatest weakness, because it can, he has no fear in the pocket. And that can help him make throws down the field without having to. It's so weird. He's such a weird quarterback. But I think that he's average at best. I think you can do better than him. He's an accurate quarterback in majority of the field, short, intermediate, and in the deep ball. He's just not a great decision maker. He turns the ball over too much. I think they need to move on from him. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones had some solid games in him, and I do think that they might give him another year and see what he can do. But I think at the end of the day, you have to move on from him. You can do better than Daniel Jones. I think he was very average this year. Number 21, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I feel like I should have put him higher than 21 because he was great, to be honest. Everything around him just kind of worked. The Dolphins had a fantastic defense this year. His receiving core is not great, but Fitzpatrick did the best he could with his receiving core. He makes a lot of guys look good because of his aggressive tendencies. He just throws 50-50 balls and prays to God that somebody comes down with it. And in this system, it kind of worked. Fitzpatrick was so much better than Tua. I feel like I should mention Tua. I would have put Tua in my below average tier. He was not good this year. I do think that you keep Tua, give him 2 more years, put some help around him, see what you got. Because he showed flashes at Alabama, but the problem is this year it just didn't really work out for him. Even when they won games, Tua looked bad. They would have been a playoff team with Fitzpatrick, but I think you want to see what you have in Tua. I can't blame them for making the switch down the stretch, but Fitzpatrick was so much better than him throughout the entirety of the year. He's an aggressive player. That's what Fitzpatrick has always been. He's the perfect backup to have, and this year it just all kind of clicked for him. And unfortunately, Tua, he's the big name. He's the guy in the spotlight. And Fitzpatrick would have been so much better down the stretch. But at the end of the day, they went with Tua. And I felt like Fitzpatrick had a really solid year. But unfortunately, I just can't put him higher than average. Number 20, I have Big Ben Roethlisberger. And you could put him higher. His stats look good, but clearly his age is showing. And granted, the offensive coordinator he has is horrible. I don't know his name, but Big Ben doesn't really throw the ball down the field at all. It's kind of like Drew Brees, but he was better than Drew Brees this year. He's more accurate. He has a better arm. He's a better decision maker, I'd say. And it's not really Big Ben's fault that he is in a bad system for him, where they don't throw the ball down the field. Again, Ben Roethlisberger is limited. He's not nearly as good as he used to be. His receiving core is very good. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Juju Smith-Schuster are all solid options. Deontay Johnson, he did have the yips for a little bit, though. He had a stretch where he just dropped everything that came his way. But he's a good separator. He gets open, and it's just a matter of whether or not he can catch the ball. Big Ben has a good system around him, but I didn't feel like he did enough to elevate the play of everybody around him. And they would have been better off with a lot of other quarterbacks, in my opinion. They might win a playoff game under Big Ben, but I think that you've really got to think about moving on from him. He is easily the best quarterback in Steelers history, in my opinion. At least from what I've seen, he's been the man in Pittsburgh for God knows how long. He's the face of that franchise, but I think you have to move on from him. He's average. He's not good enough to win you a Super Bowl anymore. Number 19, this is the epitome of average, Jared Goff. What do you want me to say about him? He's elevated by Sean McVay. If it wasn't for Sean McVay, Goff would be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Goff has good accuracy. He's got a good arm. He's kind of smart. He makes smart plays because McVay kind of like opens up like schemes, players open, and that's kind of how Jared Goff operates, I guess. And Goff is not good. He's not talented, but he just fits the system so perfectly. And he is the epitome of average. There really isn't anything else to say. Really, there isn't. He is the most average quarterback in the league, and maybe the most average quarterback in NFL history, to be honest. You could do so much better than him, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that are worse than him because he is so average. He's not great at anything. He has no elite traits. He's just good at everything, and he's the most average quarterback in the league, and you can do so much better than him. You might be able to get to a Super Bowl with him. It happened when you put him in the right system. But the problem is he's not going to win you a Super Bowl because he's just not good enough to. So, Goff, to me, number 19, he is the most average quarterback in football. I cannot see a scenario where he gets higher than, 16, to be honest. He's just not good enough. Number 18, Phillip Rivers, and this is the last quarterback in my average tier. I was close to putting him in above average. I kind of flip-flopped between the two, and I think that Rivers had a decent year. He started off slow, and when you have an old quarterback like that, of course he's going to start off slow. You need to build chemistry with your receivers and with your offense as a whole, but down the stretch you could tell he actually got noticeably better. And granted, he doesn't particularly have the arm anymore, but I think that the scheme around him was great. It fit his strengths, He doesn't really push the ball downfield too much anymore, and I think the problem is that once or twice a game, he's going to cost you a win because he makes a bad turnover. And sometimes at his age, he plays hero ball a little bit too often. It's kind of like with Carson Wentz, but Rivers is way more consistent in every other aspect of the game. You have an average quarterback here, a guy that can maybe win you a playoff game, and I just don't think you can win a Super Bowl with him anymore because of his age. He used to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but now it's clearly not there anymore. He was much better than last year. His last year with the Chargers was bad, but this year you could tell that in this system, in this scheme, it kind of worked for him, and I think that if you're the Colts, you need to look into getting a new quarterback for the future because Rivers isn't that guy. He's average. He makes enough plays where you can win some games with him. Obviously, they won 11 games with him. So you can win games with him, but I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with him. So that is Rivers rounding out the average tier at number 18. Moving on to my above average tier, number 17 is Joe Burrow. He was great this year. Honestly, for a while I thought he was better than Justin Herbert, and I just can't put him higher because of the injury, unfortunately. It would have been interesting to see how he finished out the year, but once he got hurt, you could tell the Bengals got noticeably worse. You could kind of tell that Burrow was the man down there in Cincy. He's a great leader, has great accuracy, has a solid arm, very smart decision maker. He's a fantastic player, and he is the man for Cincinnati moving forward. It's just a matter of, can you put a solid offensive line around him? The receiving core is solid. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins really emerged as solid options for Joe Burrow moving forward. But right now, I can't put him any higher because of the injury. And unfortunately, I just cannot see him any higher this year. Number 16, I have Matthew Stafford. It wasn't a great year for the Lions, but granted, it hasn't been a great year for the Lions in God knows how long. I think that he does enough. He's always been above average. He has the traits. He's got one of the better arms in the league. He's at his best when he can air the ball out 30 plus times a game, and that's something that you want. It's something that you would like out of a quarterback. And the problem is he's on the Lions, and I feel like he would have been higher had the Lions been better, had they won more games. But I can't really put him any higher than 16. He's a fantastic quarterback in terms of talent, but the problem is I think there's a lot of weaknesses around him. He's not a fantastic decision maker, and I think that at times he gets a little bit too aggressive, and maybe that comes from playing with Calvin Johnson all those years, but doesn't really have Calvin anymore. I think that Matthew Stafford is a fine quarterback, and you could probably win a Super Bowl with him. The problem is with Stafford is that when you're on the Lions, you're not winning anything. So it's unfortunate. I think that he's a great quarterback. I just think that you probably move on from him, and if you're the Lions, you rebuild. Because you're not winning a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. You basically wasted his whole career. And it's unfortunate because I think he's a very talented quarterback, but I can't really put him any higher than 16 this year. Number 15 is Kirk Cousins. A lot of people like to group him with Jared Goff and call him average, but I think he's much better than Jared Goff. He's a smarter decision maker. He's more explosive. He's a more accurate quarterback. He is a very good quarterback. I just don't know if you can win a Super Bowl with him because, again, he's a guy where everything has to go right. I do think that if the Vikings had Kirk Cousins, remember the year they had Case Keenum? If they had Kirk Cousins that year, they probably win the Super Bowl. Because Cousins is kind of like a game manager, but he's a better version of a game manager. He's a smart quarterback. I don't know how much of a leader he is, and I know that you have trouble airing out the ball with him 40 plus times a game. That's when he's at his worst. You have to have the right situation around him, and in Minnesota, he has a pretty solid offense around him. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, fantastic receivers. Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the league, and Cousins executes, and he's above average. He's not particularly like a Jared Goff where he doesn't elevate anybody around him. Cousins does this. He has moments where you look at him and you say, wow, this is a guy that can actually win you some games. And he's shown it. Last year, he was 10-6. This year, unfortunately, the team around him kind of let him down, especially early in the year. I think Cousins is a lot better than people give him credit for. And I do think that you could probably win a couple playoff games with him under the right scenario. Number 14 is Justin Herbert. A great year for a team that was really bad. The fact that they went 7-9 under Justin Herbert is pretty impressive. He was fantastic as a rookie. The arm strength was there. The aggressiveness was there. The big plays were there. It was such an explosive offense under Justin Herbert, and it was so much better than anything he put out at Oregon. A much more accurate quarterback. I think he needs to work on his overall ball placement a little bit, though. Sometimes, when he throws it, it'll be there. It'll hit the receiver, but it doesn't hit the receiver in stride. And that's a problem I had with him coming out of college. But this year, overall, everything improved. He looks so much better this year than he ever looked at Oregon. And it's impressive because he has all the traits. He's got a rocket arm. He was always kind of accurate. The problem is that he never made smart decisions. And it's still there. It's still there. But I think Herbert is probably kind of the next Matthew Stafford, where he has this huge arm talent. He's very aggressive, and he's at his best when you air the ball out 40 plus times a game. And that's something you want out of a quarterback, and that's what we saw with Herbert. He was exciting, a fun rookie quarterback to watch, and maybe the best rookie quarterback. He was statistically best rookie quarterback of all time, and that's something that's impressive. Granted, in a pass-heavy league nowadays, I do think that he was a very solid quarterback this year, and it was impressive and exciting to watch him throughout the year. Number 13, Baker Mayfield. People are going to hate me for this. Down the stretch, he was amazing. I think the problem is the first half of the year, it wasn't good. Like he was okay, and that's kind of what we all expected out of Baker Mayfield to start the year, is that he was going to be anywhere from below average to just okay. And to start the year, he was just that. He just didn't. It didn't look like he was elevating anybody around him. He was kind of the beneficiary of having Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and he was the beneficiary of having an easy schedule. But down the stretch, he looked great. He was an accurate quarterback. He had swagger. He had this confidence that we haven't seen out of Baker in a while. And on top of that, it looked like he was elevating everybody around him. He looked like the man in Cleveland. And the fact that he made the playoffs, granted with the easiest schedule in the league, that's something you can't take away from him. I thought he had a very good end to the year, and that's why I'm putting him this high. If he played the way he played at the start of the year, you probably put him in average. But as the season progressed, he got better. He's a little bit more than a game manager because you can have him elevate the players around him. Guys like Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Austin Hooper, the offensive line, everybody looked good when Baker Mayfield was in a rhythm. And that's something that you love out of a quarterback. And Baker Mayfield had a fantastic end to the year, and that's why I'm putting him at number 13. Number 12, Matt Ryan. Falcons have let him down. They've let him down really heavy because he's a fantastic quarterback. And if they had a better team around him, if they had a better defense, if they had a better offensive line, Matt Ryan would be a top 10 quarterback. But unfortunately, the Falcons have just absolutely ruined this man. And yes, he had so much potential. He had a couple of fantastic years. Obviously, the MVP year, the year he went to the Super Bowl. He's a great quarterback. The problem is the team around him has just spiraled out of control. And you probably have to rebuild and move on from him, which is unfortunate because Matt Ryan was a fantastic quarterback for a while. This year, again, he was great. The receiving core for him was fantastic. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, those are all guys that made this offense so explosive. And that's what you like out of Matt Ryan, is that he has the ability to lead an explosive offense. The problem is the team around him is just not good outside of the receiving core. So Matt Ryan at number 12 probably could be higher, but unfortunately I just don't see it. Number 11 is Derek Carr. You can argue that maybe he should be lower, but I thought he had a fantastic year. I don't think that the Raiders are that good. He has a good offense, of course, but the defense sucks. His defense is the worst in the league. And the fact that he went 8-8 with that defense, going into shootouts with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, even against the Saints, he was great. You know, he had great games against great teams, and you love that for Derek Carr. I think the system around him fits his strengths, where he doesn't have to throw the ball too much downfield. He is pretty conservative. He's kind of like a prime Alex Smith. And that's not a bad thing to have, because you can win games with a guy like a prime Alex Smith. So that's why I think Derek Carr is an above-average quarterback. I thought he had a fantastic year. Granted, the team around him isn't particularly good. I don't think his outside receivers are any good. Like, Henry Ruggs is good, but he wasn't healthy the whole year. Darren Waller was kind of the man. And I'd say he's probably the face of that offense. And without Darren Waller, Derek Carr doesn't have that great of a year. I think that you can do better than Derek Carr, but I do think you can win games with him under center. And he's an accurate quarterback. He has a solid arm. He's solid at everything. And this year, it all kind of clicked, you know? He got into shootouts with these big-time teams like the Bills, like the Chiefs, and even the Saints, who are a very well-coached team and have a fantastic defense. This is what Derek Carr can do for you. He's a very solid player, and I think he gets a little bit too much, he doesn't get the respect he deserves, in my opinion. He gets a little bit too much hate, and I think 11, probably where he is. He was a great quarterback this year. Number 10, Kyler Murray. What else can you say about Kyler Murray? Very mobile quarterback, an exciting quarterback, led an exciting offense. And unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs. And I don't really trust Cliff Kingsbury, to be honest. Kingsbury screams a good offensive coordinator, but not good as a head coach, because the defense doesn't play good under the Cardinals. But Murray looked great this year. For a while, there was talks about him in the MVP conversation. I didn't see it, but he's explosive. He's fast. He's so much fun to watch. He's super, super exciting, and he's got a great arm. He's relatively accurate in the short game and the deep game. The problem is the intermediate and across the middle of the field isn't particularly good. His accuracy isn't particularly good in those fields, and you hope that he can improve on that moving forward. But you saw flashes out of Kyler Murray that looked fantastic, and he's the man moving forward for Arizona, and he's going to be a fantastic, exciting quarterback to watch moving forward, and you can easily win a Super Bowl with him. It's just whether or not they can put a defense on the Cardinals, because the offense was fine, the defense was just so bad, and there are pieces on the defense, but the problem is Cliff Kingsbury, it doesn't feel like he gets these guys to mesh well together. And it doesn't matter what defensive coordinator they have down there, it just doesn't work. So, Kyler Murray, fantastic quarterback, had a great season. Unfortunately, the team around him let him down. Number 9, Lamar Jackson, much worse than his MVP season last year, where I had him as the best quarterback in the league. Last year, he clearly was. He was amazing. And this year, took a step back, which I anticipated. Last year, everything went right for him. And this year, in harder games, with a little bit of a, without the momentum, I think, it just didn't really click for the Ravens this year. And down the stretch, they obviously got better. That's kind of how they play. They started off hot, had a little bit of a skid in the middle of the season, but near the end of the year, they looked hot and they were exciting. And that's all because of Lamar Jackson. Again, I think he doesn't get enough credit as a passer because his receiving core sucks. Marquise Brown is the only competent wide receiver on the team. Mark Andrews is a great tight end, and they have a very good tight end room. But the receivers are not good enough. Brown gives you separation. The thing is, Lamar is such an exciting runner, and he's so much fun to watch. The problem is, yes, he has some limits when it comes to the passing game. There are a lot of quarterbacks passing that you'd want more than Lamar. I think Lamar has a fantastic arm. I think he has one of the more underrated arms in the league. It's actually very strong. The problem is the mechanics are not refined, and his accuracy is spotty. But he makes up for it because he's such an elusive runner. And he is the fastest, maybe the fastest player in the entire, not the fastest player, but clearly the fastest quarterback of all time. And clearly defenses have trouble accounting for that. He wins games. Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback, but he doesn't get credit for it because his receiving core sucks. And I think he would have had a better year had he had a better receiving core. But in my opinion, I think last year was the best you'll ever see out of Lamar Jackson. And if you can get that from a year-to-year basis, Lamar probably wins a Super Bowl. And I think you can build a team around him. You can build your franchise around him. He's the man down there in Baltimore. He's a fantastic quarterback, and I have so much respect for him. It's just unfortunate that he gets so much hate from the media. Lamar Jackson rounds out our above-average tier at number 9. We move on to the near-elite tier, and this only has 3 quarterbacks there. Number 8, Ryan Tannehill. I thought he had a great year again. He's a guy that fits perfectly into the system. Last year, I had him at like 7 or 6, somewhere around, and again, it was more of the same. He works so well under this play-action style that they run. Derrick Henry, the offense kind of runs through Tannehill and Henry because you don't know what you're getting. Tannehill executes. He makes everybody look better around him. A fantastic quarterback. It works perfectly in Tennessee, and it's fun to watch, to be honest. It's fun, but at the same time, it's super, it can be annoying if you're watching them because you know that it's either going to be Derrick Henry running the ball down your throat or it's going to be Ryan Tannehill passing it. And it's so annoying because both of them are so good. But if I were a Tennessee fan, I'd be excited because I think that this offense really does have potential. The defense down the stretch obviously looked bad for Tennessee, but Ryan Tannehill was fantastic this year. I think he is another guy that gets a little bit too much hate. I think if you ask him to throw 40-plus times a game, you're not going to get a great quarterback. He just doesn't possess those traits. But in this system where you ask him to throw 25 times a game, he executes. He hits his players. He throws with great anticipation. He's an accurate quarterback, has a solid arm, and it's all clicking for him. He's a smart player. It works perfectly in this system, and that's why I think Tannehill is a great quarterback. And again, I thought for the second straight year, it was almost an elite year for him. So Ryan Tannehill comes in at number 8. Number 7 is Dak Prescott. I thought he had a great year and probably could have been in the MVP conversation if he stayed healthy the whole year. It was unfortunate because of the injury. He's a great leader. He makes everybody look great around him. I just don't know if you could pay him because then you have to get the core around him. You got to get rid of some of your guys. He works well with the talent he has around him, and I just don't know if he's a guy that you can trust with a worse core. I think Prescott works perfectly in the system, though, where you have all this talent around him, all these great receivers like Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, a great offensive line, some good running backs in Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. It's just, can he stay healthy? Can he do enough without those guys in the lineup? And I think that's a problem you have with Dak Prescott. But when he played, he looked fantastic. He was on record-breaking pace, and that's something that you can't look past. He was getting in shootouts with some explosive offenses like Cleveland, like Atlanta, and he's a leader out there, and that's something that you can't overlook when you're looking at Dak Prescott and trying to evaluate him. I thought he was a great quarterback this year and played at a near elite level when he was healthy. Number 6, rounding out the near elite tier, is Tom Brady. And Brady, I thought he was great this year. He started off a little slow, but I expected that. It was kind of like the Phillip Rivers thing where you got to build chemistry with your team, with your offensive coordinator, with your offensive line, and with your receivers. You got to build chemistry with those guys and get accustomed to the system. I expected the Bucs and Brady to start off slow, but near the stretch it got better and much better as the season progressed. And I think that they're coming in red hot. I think they have potential to upset some teams and maybe make a Super Bowl. Brady was great at the end of the year, especially had some fantastic games on the stretch, especially against the Lions. But I think that Tom Brady gets more hate than he deserves. He's great down there in Tampa, and it took a while for him to get accustomed to the system, but it's all clicking now, and here the Bucs are, an explosive offense, and really have some momentum heading into the playoffs, and we'll see what Brady can do. That rounds out my near elite tier. We're on to the top 5 quarterbacks, guys, I thought played elite. Number 5, Josh Allen. Wow, what a season he had. Josh Allen had a fantastic year this year. Started off red hot, had a little bit of a dip in production near the middle of the season because I'm assuming it was because of an injury. He had a little bit of a shoulder injury against the Raiders, and he had a couple of bad games against some good defenses down the stretch, or in the middle of the season, rather. And, you know, you look at Josh Allen, and you look at the stats, and it all kind of pans out. He was great this year. The arm talent's there. The accuracy and ball placement were finally there. He worked out his mechanics, and he executed. And I think bringing in Stephon Diggs helped his development so much. And Brian Dable, fantastic offensive coordinator. I think that Josh Allen was kind of he was fantastic this year. He could be in the MVP conversation, in my opinion. And the offense ran through him. The team loves him. He's a leader. He's exciting. He's so much fun to watch. I wouldn't say he is particularly deserving of the MVP over the rest of these guys, but I do think that he had such a great year that he at least deserves to be in the conversation. And what a great year for Josh Allen. Everything just kind of clicked this year, and he finally looks like a good quarterback. And I'm so excited for him because I wasn't sold over the last 2 years, but this year it all worked. And you wonder if this team can keep the core around him, because obviously they're going to have to pay him, because Josh Allen's going to want some money. And you're going to have to pay Josh Allen at this point. And unfortunately, I'm a little bit concerned because what happens when you have to move on from guys like Diggs and you have to move on from some of your core pieces on the team? That's something that I worry about, but I'm not worried about it right now because the Bills are absolutely rolling. They're white hot heading into the postseason, and the playoff game is tomorrow. And I'm really excited to see what Josh Allen can do in this new and improved system. It's been fantastic this year, and he had an elite year, in my opinion. Number 4, Russell Wilson. There's not really much to say here. Had the best start to the year, maybe in NFL history, and the first half of the year and then the second half of the year kind of trailed off, I mean, he's a great quarterback, but I think sometimes he does a little bit too much. And he is obviously one of the top 5 elite quarterbacks. You know what you're getting out of him, but down the stretch, I think you need some better play from him. So, Russell Wilson, number 4, thought he had a great year. Number 3, Deshaun Watson. If he wasn't on the Texans, Deshaun Watson wins the MVP this year. He was phenomenal. And for a team that was so bad, for an organization that's so poor, they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. The defense looks so much worse. They have Bill O'Brien to start the year, and he just goes out and puts on a show each and every week. It's so much fun to watch Deshaun Watson. And he overcomes this horrible team, this horrible organization, and continues to show why he is a franchise quarterback. If you're the Texans, you hope to God that you can hold on to him. The problem is he's unsettled. He's not happy with the state of the organization, and I can't blame him. Shaun Watson is such a fantastic quarterback. I thought he was the 3rd best quarterback in the league this year, and it's unfortunate that it's all really come to this, because I think he's a great quarterback, and I think that you hope that you can have him moving forward, because he is electric. He is a leader. He has all the intangibles. He's accurate. He just does everything for this team. He is the team. The team runs through him, and that's what makes Deshaun Watson such an incredible quarterback. I think that he was easily the 3rd best quarterback in the league this year, and if he wasn't on Houston, he would be the MVP. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. I don't really think there's much to say here. Mahomes is a great quarterback. You know what you're getting out of him. They won 14 games, probably win 15 if he played the last week of the season. And, he started off hot. That's what you expect out of him. He did have some turnover-worthy plays, though, down the stretch. He led the league in turnover-worthy plays, meaning that he had a lot of lucky plays, a lot of fumbles that went his way, a lot of interceptions that got dropped, and Mahomes, fantastic talent, great quarterback, but you wonder, is that a problem moving forward? I really like Patrick Mahomes. I feel like he's the face of the league at this point, and he is the most exciting young quarterback in the entire league, and the Chiefs are probably on their way to another Super Bowl. We'll see what happens. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Again, should be expected. He's the MVP in my opinion. Granted, he had a bit of an easy schedule. He didn't really have to play that many great teams. I just think that when you look at his receiving core, yes, he has Devontae Adams, but the rest of the team around him isn't that great on the receiving end. His defense obviously has finally stepped up for him, and that's what really makes the Packers a threat in the NFC. His offensive line is solid. Obviously, losing David Bakhtiari sucks for the playoffs, but I just think that the Packers are a complete team, and the team runs through Aaron Rodgers. Any given week, you can count on him to win you a game, and that's something that you want out of a quarterback. He's elite at everything, incredibly smart, insane arm talent, a very accurate quarterback, and for him to be playing this well at his age, it really is impressive. And I think that the Packers, they're a force to be reckoned with Aaron Rodgers out there. I think that he probably wins the MVP this year, and I think he's very deserving of it. So, a great year for Aaron Rodgers. They do have Devontae Adams, who was great this year. Robert Tonyan is a decent tight end. I think he's a little bit overrated because he was just a touchdown machine this year. Didn't really do much outside of that. The rest of the receiving core sucks. Simply put, it's bad. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is not great. Alan Lazard is not great again. Rodgers does so much with so little, and that doesn't go unnoticed. I think Rodgers had such a fantastic year. I think he's very deserving of the MVP, and I think that he has really cemented himself as one of the all-time greats in the NFL. He's my number one quarterback this year. So, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. Share the video with your friends. And let them know about Logan Toth on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.